Hey now that
Now you're dealing with our generation or black women who's guarded, who has all those subconscious things that's been innate put into them by their line, and now they walk up and meet a man.
And here's the thing that's interesting. I'll give you some small examples of what I'm speaking of. Black young men tend to call ladies that they're interested in or they find attractive, besides baby, they call them what? Mom. No other. White boys and Asian boys don't call, unless they're going to be down with our community, they don't, that's not something that they do. Why do we, as black men, remember growing up, we called the house what? Crib. No other demographic calls the house crib. What does that imply?
What, like a baby? Like a baby?
Right?
I'm at the crib.
There's a lack. There's a lack of male energy in that space. That's why black men call the house crib. That's why they call women mom, because that's how they want to be treated, and they expect that, right? Rather than going into the mature dating situations, I'm looking for a woman so I can make her my wife.
You just feel back. Explain. Think about this now. When you run across a man who does not want to be treated like that, let's say a man who that's not.
You ain't like, don't say that.
He wants to leave.
Yeah.
He wants to be a man.
Yeah.
When a woman comes from a dynamic where that's the only way she knows how to treat him, now you got this. Because you don't want that. And you want to know why what's his problem? He don't know. He's like, what are you doing? I don't hold
the door open for me. I don't need my door open in that sort of.
You know what I'm saying? Right? Exactly.
Right.
Like, babe, I did this for you. He looking at you like, I don't need you to do that because one of the things, and I know this is my new, but one of the things for me is I never. It's gonna be weird, but I never got off on my girl making my plate. I'm like, you work just like I work. You're gonna make my plate. I don't need you to make my plate. That's just me. I mean, it's simple, but that's the thing.
For different guys.
But that's the thing for me. I don't. It never was a thing for me.
Well, you know what? Sir, get your ass in there. You make your own plate then, okay? Let me make sure I use the right words.
My wife
Let me
plate or whatever. I love that shit.
But let me give you the index.
Bruh.
Is code for niggas. And ma'am is code for bitches. So I'm gonna give y'all an index card.
Because let me tell you one thing.
You may sir a couple of times. That's what she said.
My mama, if my daddy did not eat his plate while it was hot, boy, she ain't show him, but baby, she was pissed that I done slaved over this stove, served you this, and he like, yeah, I'm gonna eat this in the morning or later.
In the dating scene, individuals, men and women, do not either acknowledge or be in the process of dealing with their past childhood trauma, which affects them as an adult.
That's true.
It is so, I feel like it's very intricate in you dating as an adult. Once you hone into your past childhood traumas and you start working on it, then to me, I feel like it comes full circle with you, like, oh, well, this happened and this, so this is why I treat Keisha like this, because that.
How many people are aware of childhood traumas, though? I don't think
That's what I was about to say. Some people might not even aware until they actually get into something serious.
So for me, I was in a 4-year relationship. And coming out of that relationship, it was bad. It was toxic. It was just, but in retrospect, I was. And I know, right? And in that, for me, it literally took me a time after that to realize, like, you know what? Let me focus on Q. Let me figure out, even though it was the toxicity and it was a lot going on.
What is that horn? They sounding the horn?
That I needed to deal with myself. Let me find out what I contribute to the toxicity of this relationship and work on me as a woman.
She can be a bit much.
Yeah. And I felt like for me, a lot of individuals in my growth period as a woman, a lot of individuals, men and women, you don't think about that. Like you go through a breakup and you just think about what, if you're a man, what that chick did, or if you're a woman, what that guy did. Instead of working on yourself and thinking like, okay, well, even though he might be toxic and stuff, but what did I do to contribute to the toxicity? You know what I'm saying? And thinking about your past, my trauma that I had. Granted, it ain't been a lot, but at the same time, I had trauma. Everybody has had it, but at the same time, you have to be able to hone into what your trauma is to be able to look at stuff in retrospect as an adult to see what you contribute to whatever relationship you're in and those flaws and what's happening within that.
Accountability is huge.
For sure.
In every aspect.
For sure.
That's a humongous piece as you learn to grow as an individual, being able to hold yourself accountable, being able to reflect is critical, but it's difficult. Self-reflection is not always a pretty thing.
Yeah, it's not.
You know what I'm saying? If you're doing it in honesty, you're like, man, I'm trifling. Like, I gotta do better.
Yeah.
I tell all my patients that you need to have your Michael Jackson Man in the Mirror moment.
I'm starting with the man in the mirror. All right, sorry.
Because that's the only way you're going to evolve and mature from whatever it is that's causing you pain and what have you. But I think that's, when I think about my community, I think it applies to my community.
Yeah.
Generational trauma is something that we've dealt with for 300, 400 years. And, you know, there has been a long-standing stigma about Black folks don't really see mental health as seeking mental help as a strength, because a part of the reason is, and here again, there's some legitimate reasons for the Black community to be hesitant on any type of help that's outside of their community. For example, you have, Tuskegee, right? You have there was a point in time where people in certain locations, in urban communities, they're like, I'm not going to the hospital because if I got a cough, I might come back out in a body bag.
Yeah.
So there's an inherent distrust for the system. On top of that, in terms of seeking mental health, is that when you say, okay, you know what, fuck it, I do need to go see a therapist. Let me get online and do some research.
Yeah.
When you start looking at the research, 80% are going to be white men and women.
Yeah.
And so when you see that, like me, I tell you, I think I said this before, like I'm a unicorn in my field.
Yes.
You're Black and you're a male.
Yeah. Black male with a doctorate.
Yeah.
That psychotherapist, international scholar, all this other stuff.
Yes.
Like, and I didn't really realize the gravity of that.
So that's you tooting your horn. That's that horn we keep hearing.
Yes.
I heard that.
It's psychotherapy.
They said there's some haters.
I got that doctor.
Let me get, there you go. I give him, you better toot your horn.
You know what, though? But two things. I'm published, yes.
See?
But you know what, though? But you know what? A couple of things about that. Why y'all joking? One is we have to be able to talk about and be proud of what we accomplished.
Exactly.
And not be hesitant. Some people could look at that and be like arrogance and everything else, whatever. No.
Curtis, that's what most people stop at.
We got to be proud of what we do, what we accomplish. And here's the thing. The reason why you have to speak that,
come on.
This is the whole point of critical race theory. Critical race theory, at the heart of critical race theory, all critical race theory is saying, yes, we look at all systems within the American paradigm from a racial lens. But the other part of critical race theory is saying this. Because of that system, and we view it that way, which you probably should to be at least cautious, is you also have to create your own narrative. Because if you don't create your own narrative, then that system will create the narrative for you. So you have to speak out. I'm not bragging in any way, shape, or form, but I'm damn proud
Exactly.
of the fact that I do have these certain accomplishments. The point I was going to make was that I didn't realize this whole notion of the unicorn. Also, what I'm saying is I didn't recognize the significance of that until I opened up my private practice and I started getting these calls from potential clients, and the thing they would say is, "Man, I've been looking for a black male therapist for so long,
Hey,
dude."
see?
Or the wife, or if it's a couple, because usually it's the wife or the girlfriend calling for
But yeah,
client
for the
counseling,
guys,
right?
that's true.
And they like, well, my husband or my boyfriend is willing to go, but
You gotta be
a black
That's
male
right.
therapist,
Yeah.
or they
Yeah.
say, I want him to have a black male perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree with that.
So when I started getting those calls, and sometimes when I get to these first sessions, man, they'll be like, I was hesitant. I mean, I was happy to find a black male, but then when we finally had a conversation, and then you down. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you're not a brother from Massachusetts, Vermont.
Yeah.
You know, with that weird whatever. I'm
You're
just a regular dude from the south side of Chicago.
So what? You get judged? Like they have a person?
Here's the thing. Therapy is not effective. Therapy would never be effective if a couple of things aren't established. One, the critical thing you understand about any effective therapy is that the most powerful tool that a therapist has is their relationship with the client.
Right.
So that means that trust, rapport, all those things have to be in place, or you ain't gonna get nowhere.
Right.
Because the only way therapy works is for two things to happen. One, the therapist has to be honest, but more importantly, the client has to be honest.
Exactly.
And if I'm not feeling you, if I'm not sure that you whatever,
Because
I'm not telling you the truth.
how can you do your job or help them if they're not totally being honest?
But if I feel like if I can't connect with
We
you,
were at
I'm not gonna tell you the truth.
her home.
I feel like I'm gonna be judged.
So have you ever turned a client away or like ended a session?
Is this being recorded right now?
Yeah, because we got like two
conversations.
Yeah. I was asking Andre because I was saying, well, has he ever turned a client away based off of, you felt like they weren't being honest with you? Like, because how can you do your job?
I've had the fortune of never having turned a client away in that particular predicament.
Okay.
Because as an existentialist, I'm also an existentialist. And it's a sort of a unique way of approaching therapy and viewing life. And one of the things that's important is that you have to be responsible and accountable, right?
Right.
But when you work with a client after a while and they keep coming back for whatever reasons, you can start to pinpoint the bullshit. And for me, part of being an existentialist is what's critical is that real significant quality relationship. And if you feel you've built that trust and that rapport, then you can say, you know what, bullshit.
Okay.
And they won't say, oh, I'm never coming back. They're gonna be like,
okay, maybe I have.
Let me, you know what I'm saying? But you gotta have that relationship.
So reels into what the sidebar conversation that Curtis and I was having. It was saying that, I've done like relationship counseling in my past relationship. And she like invited us to her home, like her residence where she lives.
Oh wow.
Which Curtis was asking, like, did that make me feel? Yeah, it made me feel comfortable. But to his point, it was like, right.
I'm like, what was the difference?
Yeah, but to his point, it made me feel comfortable.
Right.
It was a woman. I wouldn't have had it either way.
Trying to take you
I wouldn't have had it, no other way, but at the same time, she's a black woman. And I can relate to being able to relate with black individuals. I don't necessarily know. I'm not against therapy at all. But I don't think for myself that I would be able to connect with a therapist that was not
of your background.
My background.
Because they don't. And again, it's no shade towards any other ethnicity.
Yeah.
Sorry. Those people in their profession, but you do need someone who can relate to what you're going there for. Otherwise, it's just another person with a degree reading you some script.
Well, that's the potential consequence. But let me caveat that, okay?
Go ahead.
I think for our community, it's easier to go into therapy since we're already resistant to it.
For sure.
It's easier to go into therapy if you feel you can relate to the therapist on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
And usually, and hopefully that's an African American, what have you. What I will say,
Okay, I see
if I think about the one genius postulate that was offered by Harry Sachs Sullivan in 1953, he talks about we are all much more human than simply otherwise.
Okay.
When I think about that, that doesn't, what it says is to me in therapy, it means that because we are all much more human than simply otherwise, everybody feels pain, sorrow,
Okay.
loss, want connection, need for achievement, efficacy, all these things. So, depending on the circumstance, there are therapists who can be of different ethnic origins and clients who can be of different ethnic origins, and therapy can work. It can work, but unique to the context of African Americans, I think because of what we've dealt with, there's a level of caution and paranoia within that mental health space, and because of that, I think it's just more effective to have African American therapists working with African American clients.
So let me pivot, because I got a question for you, Andre. And this may help the women. If you were a female, how would you approach dating a black woman?
I want to hear this, doctor. Tell me, doctor.
I mean, I have trouble with the question because
He's not a woman.
I'm not a female, but you know what? Here's the thing, though. I have a twin sister who I love dearly. Yeah, Kurt has.
We talked. We're not gonna get into.
A long story about that.
No, we're not gonna get into that last.
So I have a twin sister, and I have two older sisters.
Okay.
3 older sisters actually. And you know, essentially raised by. My dad was in the picture too, to a large extent.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to try to talk from that perspective, not the perspective of imagine myself a woman.
Seriously, I deal with one every day
You can see
at
it come
work.
out.
Yeah, at work. But I can literally, I have her in the back of my. I'm gonna text her on my way home. Legit.
Let the man speak.
Go
Then
ahead.
Andre, like, you know what?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Kurt, just to be clear, your question is, if I was a black woman,
How would you approach
Dating.
dating
okay.
a black man?
Come on, help me out, Dr. Andre.
So I would think I would take it. Okay, now here's the thing though. Dating in terms of, because dating as a young high school, you know,
No,
college.
so, okay, we're gonna say 35.
Okay, so
plus.
You want me to frame it?
So
Say 35 plus.
I mean, it depends,
Okay.
right?
35 plus.
You're a black woman between 35 and 45. You're dating in 2021, 2022.
Come on.
Post-pandemic.
We in the panoramic.
What? Do you mean a pandemic?
You are your equal.
Do you
are
mean
your
a
equal.
pandemic?
Listen,
Do
you are
you-
your female
I hope we're
equal.
gonna
So
edit
whatever
this.
you make as our Dr. Andre, whatever version of this woman, that's what she makes.
Right.
Okay.
He like,
Well-
I don't want to date a black man. Like, he
Well,
petty, man. He
well,
petty as hell,
one,
though.
I mean, I would make a very pretty woman, so
You would?
I would not.
I mean, neither.
So
You would not what?
You wouldn't make pretty women.
So my sister's beautiful though.
Okay.
My sister's
Shout out to
beautiful.
the twin.
You don't think
Shout out
that.
to-
Shout out to the
Yeah.
twin. He's like, we're not finna do that.
I look just like my dad. She looks just like my mom. So
Oh,
it worked out
okay.
that way. Okay. So, but what I guess the more appropriate question that I can answer is the maybe the advice. You right?
I just want to know
How I
you
would approach it.
Right.
And so now I'm basing this off of my 7, 8, 9 years of experience working with couples, and particularly black couples, because about nearly half my caseload are couples.
Okay.
Okay, and some of them are, most of them are African American, both LGBTQ and hetero, right? So, what I would say is that self-knowledge is really important. Self-knowledge is really important. That's an existential concept. And what self-knowledge means is, and I even tell my students this, is that when you really want to understand any form of psychology, you must also understand literature and history. It enhances your understanding of psychology. And psychology is the study of the mind. So understanding your mind, you're understanding self, right? So I would say for Black women, I would say you want to increase as much as possible your self knowledge, and part of doing that is by allowing yourself time to self reflect and introspect, right? That's one. Two, I think that understanding like some of the history stuff we're talking about, it allows you to have a little more grace and patience in understanding the plight of the African American man and the plight of the African American woman, right? I think that makes you a little bit more sensitive to your approach of dating. Three, I would say, here's the thing. Remember I told you earlier about having standards and expectations?
For sure.
Here's the thing. This is a controversial statement. I would say, yes, you should have your standards and your expectations in terms of dating.
Of course.
And you shouldn't be ashamed about them. You shouldn't feel hesitant to articulate them. Why? Because no other demographic of women will be shamed for having standards and expectations about a life partner. So why should you? But particular to African American women, given the sort of the difficulty with the lack of male role modeling and the lack of experience with talking to people who really understand this notion of traditional thoughtful dating, I think what's important is you have to make sure that the expectations and standards you have are reasonable. And are sensitive to the context, particularly if you want a Black man, of the context of what you're saying you want to date in. I think those are the things you have to truly be aware of. Now, here's the other thing. I think too that I need to be careful here.
No, don't just be
It's-
real raw, and we waiting on you to just be like, hey.
You better be careful with the words, because I'm looking at you and I'm looking at you and I'm looking at you. You better come on.
You ain't gotta be careful.
So
You
I
ain't
wanna
gotta be careful.
Come with
You ain't gotta be careful. Put it out there.
I think. Okay, here's the thing.
If you don't just put it out there, because if it don't apply, let it fly.
I'm trying.
I'm used to this talk.
Well, I have to be careful with my words because I am.
Yeah.
That is my tool.
Yeah.
Words,
I
right?
know.
So what I'll say is about the last point is that we all want connection. All of us.
That's what we're
Black,
here for,
white, whatever.
yeah.
We all
Yeah.
want connection.
We're
We
gonna
all
make-
want to be able to be loved and to give love. That's a human need. And one way that comes into play is through romantic partnership, right? And the difficulty there is it's one part physical, one part cerebral and emotional, right? What I would say is you got to be very thoughtful about the cerebral part more so than the physical part, right? You have to put the cerebral part before the physical part, because the physical part can be so fun, it can be so intense that it can compromise the cerebral part.
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
so you have to be mindful of that, because how that plays out in reality is Black women, I think, should date slowly.
Facts. I get you.
They should date slowly.
Make a connection
Date
before
slowly.
you fuck.
And here's but there's a rhyme and reason to that.
The drink has
I
kicked
think,
in.
and here's the thing: men, they argue that men are more simple than women in terms of how they just process the world emotionally. And to a large extent, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, here's how that plays out in the dating space, particularly in the contemporary 2022 post all this stuff that you're saying space, is that men, particularly Black men, especially if they doing something with themselves, you know what I'm saying, got a little something going, whatever. But the goal is, you know,
Can
how
you point
many,
us
how
in
many
the direction with the man that's doing something with themselves?
Right.
Just when you get there. Sorry.
Right,
Okay.
afterwards,
Just,
it don't have to be on the table.
And they not rapping. Okay.
Yeah,
Go
let us
ahead.
know.
Sorry.
So
I threw you off. I'm sorry.
the men will approach the dating scene unless they're ready, that's when they're older, like, you know. But most men, Black men, they approach the dating scene, or well, most men, but particularly Black men, we're talking about that. They approach the dating scene with the notion of, am I going to score with this woman? You know,
Score meaning what?
sex. Yeah, I'm gonna sleep with this woman.
Okay.
Right. So, right. So,
Because
so
she
that-
knew
so-
what that
so-
meant.
So here's the thing. So
You
here's-
want them to go deeper into.
I need to know what you mean by scoring.
So score. So,
Shit.
but here's the thing. And women, black women, I think as they get older, they don't generally go into that space with that being at the forefront.
Yeah.
It's part of it because we're all human, but it's not at the forefront.
Yeah.
I think for men, because we're simpler, because we're more visual. I think it's more, it's like, you know, think about it, Kurt. When we go out, it's like, oh, we see an attractive woman, like, oh, and the thing we're thinking about is what I would do to her, right? Because she looks like, right, exactly. So right, and women, which I do believe, women can make an assessment. Make an assessment about whether they would be willing to sleep with a man within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah,
but then they put that to the side
Yeah.
because now she's saying it's depending on how this man comes at her,
Yeah.
whether that's going to be a possibility or not.
That's
That-
So my thing is though,
You know a little something, huh?
just a little.
You know a little something.
So my thing is this. So if you're looking for the long-term, more serious relationship, and that's the approach that both men and women have to dating, right?
Yeah.
Then what I mean by slow down for a moment is this. There's no business sleeping with this person until a couple of things are identified. Have you met his family?
Yep.
Have you met his circle?
No, sir.
Have you met a circle?
I'm not getting none of this.
Has he come over to your place? Has he come over after work so that you can really know that he's working and has a decent right? Have you gone over his place?
Yeah.
Have you seen how he
Do you have a place?
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Yes.
Have you gone over his
Curtis,
place?
that's the question.
So to me, all these type of questions need to be answered before you give into what he wants in the first place.
Yeah.
Now, when the point about men being more simple creatures and more visual creatures and are thinking about sex at the forefront,
Yeah.
what I mean by simple is within all that stuff that I said, the getting to know, meeting some of his folks, meeting some of his friends, him meeting some of your friends, even all that, is you give this simple creature, okay, an opportunity, because men are simple, but they can be groomed or exposed to things that make them think on a deeper level. And I think that falls in the woman's lap. In other words, as you're going through this courting process, as he meets your folks or your friends and what have you, as you meet their folks and those friends, they're getting different types of feedbacks. So for him, by the time the actual sexual experience happens, for those men, they're already valued for other reasons.
Or to get out. Right. But they already value you for other reasons. So for them, they realize it was about the fact that she's fine and I want to get in those draws.
Yeah.
But damn, she's all these other things. So I would be a fool to now here's the thing.
Oh, my goodness. That episode just blessed me mightily. I appreciate y'all tuning in and I hope y'all enjoyed it. We got more episodes coming soon, but always remember, subscribe, like, and share on YouTube, Nutted Music TV. Y'all be blessed.